Reid here, and I'm here to talk about three prospects the San Francisco 49ers should keep an eye on this year. Coming off of a Super Bowl appearance, a lot of people had very high expectations for the 49ers coming into this season, but they just haven't been able to live up to it just because they've just been decimated with injuries from Jimmy Garoppolo to Nick Bosa. And there's plenty of other players that have suffered some season-long or even season-ending injuries as well. But the great thing about it is that they're in really good position to acquire some talent with high-end draft picks. And I think the biggest areas of need with this team are quarterback. It'll be really interesting to see what happens with the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, as he just hasn't been able to stay healthy, but he's also been very inconsistent during this year as well. I think interior offensive line is another area that they need to address. Weston Richburg just hasn't been what they thought they were getting when they signed him to the lucrative deal in free agency. And I also think cornerback is a huge area of need as well. Richard Sherman obviously is an older corner. Ahkello Witherspoon just hasn't taken that next leap. And I like Emmanuel Mosley, but I just think he's better served as that number 3 guy as opposed to that long-term number 2 option. But let's just start with quarterback. And at the top, there's big names like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance. And I think those guys are going to be the top 4 at the position. The 49ers probably are not going to have a high enough pick to get Lawrence or Fields. So now it comes down to Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, even a guy like a Kyle Trask or Mac Jones. Now, I want to focus on Mac Jones just because I think he's a guy that really is tailor-made for a Shanahan type of system. And we know with Shanahan type of quarterbacks, they don't have to have the biggest arm in the world, and they don't have to have overwhelmingly great physical traits. But I think that's an underrated factor about Mac Jones. And yes, he does not have the mobility that a Trey Lance or a Zach Wilson or even a Justin Fields has, but he is extremely smart. He has a very high football IQ. He always knows where to go with the football. And I think he fits really well in a Shanahan-based type of system. And I think Shanahan is going to have the same line of thinking as well, even though Mac Jones may not be overly talented as some of these other or physically gifted as some of these other quarterbacks in this class. I think his smarts, his awareness, and even though he lacks mobility, he is very good inside the pocket as far as his pocket awareness and pocket savvy and just knowing where to go to create those new avenues and throwing windows as well. That's what you notice about his film at Alabama so far this year. But I think a very underrated factor about Mac Jones and why he fits really well in the San Francisco system as well, and where Jimmy Garoppolo has struggled, is that he's an exceptional down the field thrower. So you have guys like a Brandon Ayuk and then Deebo Samuel, guys that are really good after the catch. Now you add in down the field dynamic to a guy like a George Kittle as well. I think Mac Jones is a really good fit in this offense. And that's not to say take him with the top 15 overall pick. I think you could trade up in the second round and get a guy like Mac Jones, or even if they want to trade up into the bottom half of the first round. I don't think Mac Jones will end up going in that area, but you never know with this quarterback class. I think he probably will go in the Andy Dalton type of range. So I think the top 45 will be a fair range for Mac Jones. And I think he could be in contention for the 49ers in that area. So quarterback is an area that I think they definitely will look to address just to give Jimmy Garoppolo some competition. But also, I want to talk about interior offensive line as well. And Josh Meyers from Ohio State, the center there, I think he's a very talented player, a player that really has played since he stepped foot on campus. And he has just been the heartbeat of that Buckeyes offense. And I think when you're replacing a guy like Weston Richburg, you have to have a very athletic type of center there just because that's what Shanahan likes in this scheme. And I think Josh Meyers definitely is that. And he's involved in the top 10 matchup with Indiana this weekend, a team that has athletes on both sides of the ball. So this will be a huge test for Josh Meyers and one of the better offensive lines throughout the country. But the last name that I want to talk about, and I know this isn't a cornerback, and I said that at the beginning, that is a position that the 49ers could look to address, but edge rusher. I think this is an underrated need for the 49ers. And with edge rusher, we don't know what Dee Ford is going to bring to the table outside of this year. We know the hefty contract that he has. He has just been decimated with injuries during his time with the 49ers as well. So I'm going to go to Pitt, and it's Patrick Jones II, a player that is very talented. He goes up against a very talented offensive tackle in Christian Darrisaw from Virginia Tech. So this will be one of his biggest tests of the year. So keep an eye on Patrick Jones. He's very nice coming out of the starting blocks, has a very urgent and violent first step of the field. He's a very nice, handsy, crafty type of edge rusher that I think always has a plan when he's coming off of the edge as well, which the 49ers have taken a liking to in years past. So 3 prospects that 49ers fans should keep an eye on. Mac Jones from Alabama as he battles Kentucky this week. Patrick Jones II as he goes up against a very talented Virginia Tech offensive line. Then also Josh Meyers, the very talented center.